أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum dear students. I wish and hope all of you are doing well and your family members and your loved ones would also be enjoying good health. So a quick reminder, I would like to mention again that send me your research assignment topics if you can't choose your research topic for yourself. Then I would perhaps suggest some topic for assignment to you for those people. And another thing, keep preparing for your final term exams because they are approaching near, and you can ask me about your midterm marks if all of you, if, especially those who have submitted their dues, semester dues, because today some of the students have been inquiring me, like they have been asking me consistently about their midterm marks, but we didn't have such instructions from the department to tell the scores to the students. So today I got a message from the department allowing me to share the midterm marks with the students only if only to those students who have submitted their dues. So those students who have submitted their like fee for this semester, they can, if they are interested to know about their midterm marks, they can just ask me and I would tell them their midterm marks. Okay, let's talk about our today's topic of discussion. As we were having discussions about the treaties involving disarmament and arms control, and in the previous lecture we talked about START 1 treaty, and before that we talked about another significant treaty in that regard, which is the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And continuing with that discussion, today we will talk about another START treaty that is known as START 2, and we will have a thorough look at this treaty, and we will try to complete this discussion about complete our discussion about today's topic in our today's lecture. So let's start with that. So first of all, we will talk about the very status of this Treaty of START 2. First of all, that treaty was signed on January 3rd, 1993. So that was the date on which the treaty was signed between the United States and the Russian Federation, that is the inheritor of the legacy of the former Soviet Union. And then it was ratified by the US Senate on 26 September 1997, and later on it was ratified by the Russian State Duma on April 14th, 2000, and then it was ratified by the Russian Federation Council on 19th April 2000. So with the difference of 5 days, it was ratified by the Russian Federation Council on April 19th, 2000. Then eventually, after 2 years of its ratification by the in Russian Federation Council, Russia declared this treaty null and void on 14th June 2002. So that is the very brief overview of the Treaty of START 2, and now we will have a bit more detailed discussion about the status of this very Treaty of SALT 2 and why it has not been ratified by the US Senate. The United States Senate ratification resolution included a provision requiring the President to seek Senate approval of any strategic arms cuts that would reduce the US strategic arsenals to below START 1 ceiling before START 2 entered into force. So that is the very first conditions that is implemented by the United States Senate ratification resolution. So if the president seeks to reduce the number of strategic arsenals below the level of START 1, so it is imperative for the President of the United States to seek approval from the Senate under the US Senate ratification resolution before the START 2 enters into force. On the other hand, Russian State Duma START 2 ratification law required the United States Senate to ratify the extension protocol and the 1997 anti-ballistic missile demarcation agreements for ratification instruments to be exchanged and for the treaty to enter into force. So for this treaty to enter into force, both the United States Senate ratification resolution and the Russian State Duma START 2 ratification law, they set certain requirements to be acquired or to be achieved before this START 2 treaty enters into force, which has been mentioned just now. So on June 14th, 2002, the Russian Federation announced its withdrawal from START 2 because the US refused to ratify the treaty and the US withdrawal from the ABM treaty. So the as I just mentioned earlier that the US didn't ratify this treaty of START 2, and the why Russians withdrew from this treaty or declared that START 2 null and void on June 14, 2002. They had two main reasons behind this move. The first one was that the US Senate didn't ratify this Treaty of START 2, which was the requirement set under the Russian Federation START 2 ratification law, and another was that the US withdrew from the ABM treaty, which was signed earlier by the US. So these two decisions compelled or provoked the Russian Federation to withdraw from this Treaty of SALT 2. So this treaty is no longer in effect. Now we will talk about some treaty obligations. The Star 2 complemented actually rather than replace the earlier Star 1 terms and conditions, in that the earlier treaty's provisions remain unchanged unless specifically modified by Start 2. So we can say that the Start 2 treaty was actually uh, the complementation of the earlier treaty of Start 1, unless a specific change is unless a specific modifications were made in this treaty of Start 2. Start 2 was to remain in force for the duration of Start 1. So as far as the treaty obligations are concerned, Start 2 established a limit on strategic weapons for each party, with reductions to be implemented in two phases. So in order to reduce the number of strategic weapons under the Start 2 agreement, it was decided that this would be achieved in two phases. So by the end of first phase, the United States and Russia were to reduce their total deployed strategic nuclear warheads to 3,800 to 4,250. So by the end of the first phase, it was decided that both the United States and Russia would reduce their strategic warheads to the number of 3,800 and 4,250, including no more than 2,160 warheads deployed on submarine launched ballistic missiles, and no more than 650 on heavy intercontinental ballistic missiles, and no more than 1,700 to 1,750 on submarine launched ballistic missiles. So these were the reductions that were prescribed to be achieved by the end of the phase 1 by the United States and Russia. So as far as the second phase, the end of second phase is concerned, each party's total number of deployed strategic nuclear warheads was not to exceed 3,000 to 300, 3,000, 3,500. So in the second phase, the number of deployed strategic nuclear warheads was further decreased. First it was 3,800 to 4,250, and in the end, by the end of the second phase, it was reduced to just 3,000 to 3,500. Of this number, no more than 1,700 to 1,750 were to be deployed on sea-launched ballistic missiles. Phase 2 required the implementation of all heavy ICBMs and all ICBMs on multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. This ICBMs on multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles did not apply to sea-launched ballistic missiles. Start 2 actually modified Start 1 missiles downloading rules governing which MIRVs middle missiles may be converted to a single warhead configuration. STAR 2 allowed each side to download two existing type of missiles by up to 4 warheads per missile, with no limit on the total number of missiles or warheads affected. Each side was also allowed to download 105 ICBMs by up to 5 warheads per missile. In practice, these conditions meant Russia may download 105 of its UR-100NS. So now we will talk about the missile elimination. The STAR 2 missile system elimination rules were generally similar to those of STAR 1 in that they required that the missile's silo was to be eliminated or converted to carry a treaty permitted missile type. The sole exception to this rule was the R-36M, uh, that is a type of strategic missile which were to be destroyed along their silos. So STAR 2 allowed 90 R-36M silos to be converted for use by single warhead missiles, however, which meant that the Russian elimination quota was 64 out of 154 R-36M silos. So in contrast to STAR 1, STAR 2 calculated nuclear warheads attributed to heavy bombers by counting the number of warheads each heavy bomber is actually capable of carrying. Additionally, STAR 2 allowed each side to convert up to 100 heavy bombers to conventional rules. Such bombers were not be counted against the STAR 2 warhead limit, provided they had observable differences from nuclear capable bombers of the same type and were not based at the same location as nuclear capable bombers. Each side was to convert such bombers to a nuclear role following a 3-month notification, but was not to subsequently reconvert them to a conventional role. So this is all about some of the similarities and contrast in the STAR 1 and STAR 2 treaties in terms of converting the warheads according to specific rules and regulations which were consensually decided in the Treaty of SALT II. And as far as the verification and compliance of this Treaty of SALT II is concerned, we will talk about that in the upcoming lectures. Um, so this treaty is no more in use because it has not been ratified by the United States Senate, and later on the Russian Federation withdrew from that because of the Russian withdrawal, because of the US withdrawal from ABM treaty, and because of uh, the United States refusal to ratify this Treaty of SALT too. So that is all about our today's discussion about SALT 2, and in the upcoming lecture we will talk about the verification and compliance of this treaty, and then we will move forward with our next topic of discussion. So if you have any queries in your mind, please feel free to um, write to me, and I would be quite happy to answer your questions. So wish you all the best, and stay safe and healthy. See you for next time. Until then, Allah Hafiz.